More than a decade after Robert Pickton was arrested and charged for multiple murders, a report on the inquiry into the disturbing case has been released. It says there was public indifference and police failures in the case, and changes are needed to prevent future investigative errors from happening. A coalition of 25 groups say the final report of the missing women's inquiry doesn't go far enough. The list includes the Carrier Sekani Tribal Council, which feels the North was left out. We have their reaction, but first, some of the blatant failures that Commissioner Wally Oppal identified in his report.
Lives could have been saved. That's according to the final report by Commissioner Wally Oppal on one of the most notorious cases in Canadian criminal history.
It's really a misnomer. The women didn't go missing. They aren't just absent. They didn't just go away. They were taken. They were taken from their families, taken from their friends, taken from their community. Their lives were taken away from them.
The missing women inquiry used evidence from police investigations and heard from 80 witnesses during 10 months of public hearings. The findings point to a systemic bias against Pickton's victims.
It was important for me to understand the underlying causes of police failures. The women were poor. They were addicted, vulnerable, Aboriginal. They did not receive equal treatment from the police. As a group, they were dismissed.
Oppal concludes society's lack of concern for the women and police failures allowed Pickton to continue his crimes for years.
A failure to consider and pursue all investigative strategies, failure to follow major case management practices and policies, failure to address cross-jurisdictional issues, and ineffective coordination between police forces and agencies. In other words, the failure of the police to work together with other police agencies.
The report includes a number of recommendations. They include more training for police officers to understand lives of women working in the downtown east side, more social services for sex trade workers, and the need for police organizations to work collaboratively.
To make the changes necessary to help keep our most vulnerable citizens safe, to stop the violence against women, all women, and to bring awareness to Vancouver, to British Columbia, and to Canada as a whole.
The $10 million inquiry and its final report is coming under fire from 25 groups who say it doesn't go far enough. Brenda Wilson's sister Ramona went missing almost 18 years ago. To this day, she doesn't have peace.
And they need to be seen as a person, not a statistic.
Wilson feels an inquiry needs to take place in the North, that her sister's story must be told.
She needs to be known as who she was, because a lot of these women are all put into one basket and they're never seen as an individual person.
It's a sentiment shared by the Carrier Sekani Tribal Council. It says the missing women inquiry was deeply and systematically flawed from the beginning, leaving out many groups. Tribal Chief Terry Teegee is pushing for a national inquiry as well as one specifically for the North.
It's a real look at our issues up here in the North. The issue of the highway tiers was clearly an add-on as the inquiry started, and that was just because a lot of the families up here were talking about, what about us?
Mary Teegee with Carrier Sekani Family Services says Oppal's mention of a systemic bias towards Pickton's victims was a positive step, but action must be taken.
There's issues of poverty, there's issues, that, of course, of the impacts of colonization, the impacts of residential school. So we actually have to look at that together as a society and work together to figure out what are we going to do and where is that commitment going to come from.
I think systemic bias within the RCMP needs to be addressed nationally. So I think that's why we need a national inquiry into the missing and murdered women, but also the fact that there's a real strained relationship between Aboriginal people and the RCMP.
At this point, the federal government has not committed to a national inquiry on missing women. However, it says it's taking a number of steps to address the issue, including community safety plans for women in Aboriginal communities and a national police support center for missing persons. Aileen Machal, CKPG News.